Welcome back to Stu Structures. I am Mark Stewart and we're here to continue our build on the freight house, so stay tuned. Okay, so we are back. Thanks for coming back and joining me. I am Mark Stewart and this is Stu Structures. We're going to continue our build on the freight house. We have that decking to finish onto the platform. We have the roof to start over the platform, and I need to continue on with the shingles for the roof and get some of that accomplished. It's a slow process, but I need to get on that and get more of that done. Because it won't be too long. The other roof will be tied in over the platform onto that roof, and we'll need to get that stuff on there and get it painted. And I'm just going to go through some of my boxes and just find some basic scenery material. I may go ahead and glue some of this down to the platforms and just start some of the scenery on it. I haven't done that in my previous buildings, but maybe I'll get some of that done as well. So let's just jump into this and see how much we can get accomplished. Now, I don't have a whole lot of pictures of the roofs over all these platforms. This is one of the few, and it doesn't give a lot of good detail. I do have those two drawings I showed in the previous one. So anyway, we're going to start working on some of that, but we're going to continue on with getting all the decking on all these platforms as well. And you can see here the platform on the end of the building. I've got all the boards on it. Now those real long strips that I cut to go along the little small risers that held up the platform, I have a couple extras of those, and I'm going to take one of these and just cut a header to go across all of those poles that hold that extension up to the roof as a rafter that goes the full length of the building. And then there will be small ones that come out from that. And you can see here, after I take the clamps off, I'm continuing to work on the decking at the same time as that was going on, and other chores are going on as well. Now there were some lights on this building. You can see there was one over the door on this end of the building where that platform was. There was also one on this long side of the building as well. I think I'm going to go ahead just to have some nighttime viewing on the layout and add lights to all three of these doors on this side of the building as well. So there'll be a total of 4 lights. And I'm just using these Teachy lights here. This is just as they came from the factory here, but I'm going to upgrade these a little bit. So what I do is I come back and cut all the bulbs off the underneath of the sides of the shades. So it's just the shades, and I'm leaving these in the plastic sprue, and I come back with my Dremel, and now that little bulb is cut out of the underside, I can use a little stone bit in the end of my Dremel and just route out the underside of these so there's a concave area underneath the shades on these lights to mimic the real shade that would have been there on the lights. And it just takes a little bit of time. You got to go real slow and work with it. But then here, and they're not perfect, but you can see here how they are rounded out underneath now. So it's a concave area where the light would have sat up in. And I'm going to take a drill now and come down through the top of the holes of these light shades where normally the bracket would connect into to glue it to the building. But I'm going to drill this out, and after that hole is drilled out, I come back and paint the underside of the shades white. A lot of modern shades have silver, but back in the day a lot of these shades along the railroads actually had white underneath of them. I have packets of these tiny LEDs, and what I'm going to do is actually put bulbs in all these light fixtures that light up. So I come back and just string a lamp into each one of these lights, and I'm using these for several projects. So I'm just making a bunch of these all at the same time. But then I put a little bit of Gorilla Glue on them when I get the light just to set right down into where it needs to be to glue the wire in place in the center of that, and it holds the LED right underneath it. It's about the same size as a bulb. And then I come back and add that bracket to the back of the light instead of setting it down and gluing it into the hole, just onto the back part of the shade of the light. And then I come back and mount those over the doors. Some of you probably saw that in one of the earlier shots of this platform. But then I've got lights over all 4 doors, and the wires are just loose on the inside of the building at the time. Now we're going to come back and start working on this overhang that overhangs the platform out on the railroad edge. There's an extension out onto the roof of the building actually. So I come back and I measure along that edge of the roof, and every 2 foot on center I put a mark, because there's going to have to be a rafter extension added to each one of those marks. And I found this real thick piece of sign that's a scrap from a previous project, and I'm just going to come back and I'm going to cut strips out of that to about 8 inches wide or 9 inches wide. They kind of vary. I didn't get perfect cuts on these, but I'm just cutting these strips to make the rafters out of. Now I measured the rafters, and I need a rafter that's about 7 feet long. And I need to cut this one notch into one end so that it sets up on the roof, and then I need to cut a little tiny notch down below so that it sets down on the rafter that I added on previously. And I just need a bunch of these, so I just cut a bunch of them to begin with here to start laying them on the building, and I came back and cut another 25 after this to get all the rafters I need. And as I'm still working on the decking underneath, everywhere I've got decking already glued down, I just go ahead and start adding the rafters in. And I'm adding every other one right now because my fingers are going to knock the one behind it and just make things harder to do. So I'm just going to do every one right now, and then come back and add the ones in the middle after all the glue has set up on these first ones that I had put on. And we just continue this process over and over and over. I just do a little of the decking at a time and put weights on it so it can set up, and then add the next section of decking in. And as I'm going back and doing more of the decking, then I'm coming back and adding the rest of these supports, and then filling in the middles of them as I go on. And here the last bit of the decking is down, and it's got weights on it. And I come back and just touch up the paint all the way around the decking, and once all those supports are in for that other roof, then I go ahead and black paint everything, all the sides except for the top. Now we need to add the roof sheet to the top of those rafters. So now I'm just using this real thin garage sale sign like I use most of my plastics, and I measure it and I cut out the piece, and this just slightly overlaps the track side edge, but it's flush with either end of the roof, because I need to mount more roofs on the ends of those. So I just come back and put a flat black paint on the bottom side of that, because I don't want to go up underneath all these crevices and try to get black paint up in all those areas. And then once I get that on and glued down, this is just a pan here of everything the way it sets at this point. Now we can start putting the roofing on this side of the building as well. Touched up all the black paint. I still have to go around the building. There's some shiny glue and stuff showing here and there, so I had to put some flats cut lacquer on top of that to hide the shininess of a few things, and just touch up a little more paint in a few other areas. But we have all the lights installed and they're painted and in place. Now we have to start working on the the roofs that extend over the rest of this deck out here. So there you have the end of another build, or part of the build, on the freight house. We still got a little ways to go on this. It's going to take a while to do the roof. But I have the rest of the platform that's still exposed. There is roofing that goes on out over those parts of the deck, and so I need to make the supports and get all that put together, and roofs across that area as well, so I can shingle that as I do the rest of the roof. There's just other odd touch-up things here and there, some paint that I need to come back and touch up here and there. There's some areas where the glue was just a little excessive when I glued something, and the glue's showing and it's kind of shiny, so I need to bring a matte surface back across that to hide that shininess, and just paint it with a matte acrylic color on top with some brushes. But basically that's, the building's coming together. It's just about done. Maybe after the next video it'll be worth a panoramic view on the turntable as it would come to a close. At least most of the heavy building part of it will be done. The roofing is going to take a little while. It's not something I enjoy doing, so I kind of put it off. On this building I just didn't like what I was putting on there with the tape either, and I've played with it, and I'm just going to have to continue on with it and get it done. I'm going to start working on some other projects while I'm doing that, and get some other videos ready to be put out there for you. I've got several things I'm working on, a lot of smaller structures that are, that take a week maybe and a few evenings to build or something like that. And they would be good ones for you guys to cut your teeth on if you're wanting to scratch build and never have before. They don't take a lot of materials, and something that's fairly easy to build. So we're going to do some of those. I'm going to get a break from these larger buildings. There are a couple wood buildings for the freight yard or the car yard end. So maybe I'll work on those because they'll be easier builds even though they're fairly large buildings. Maybe we'll do those after a few small builds, and I don't know, maybe a surprise oddity here and there thrown at you. But anyway, I want to thank you for coming back and spending this time with me. I enjoy building these buildings. I hope that some of these processes and the things I do, maybe you can learn something. I said once before, well, maybe you've learned what not to do. I make my fair share of mistakes. When you're making it up and flying by the seat of your pants as you go, you're going to make some mistakes. It's just going to happen. I've been scratch building for a long time, and it's still all trial and error when you're building something that isn't built. It doesn't come in a kit. There are no instructions or even how to do this or what materials to use or anything like that. So anyway, share this with your friends in the hobby out there. A lot of people would like to know how to do some of this stuff, and they don't know this information's out here. Subscribe to my channel. There's a little bell beside the subscribe button down there. If you hit it, then you can tag it to, every time I have a video that comes out, you'll be notified, and you can keep up with the series of things I'm building. And hit the thumbs up down below. The likes help me out, and I do appreciate you coming and watching these. It only takes another second to hit that thumbs up button. So anyway, I hope you're getting some inspiration to just jump out there and scratch build some small buildings or something to start with this winter, and hone your craft a little bit and get to the point where you can do really complicated builds. I'd like to see a lot of you put out some videos on structures you're building for your model railroad. And if you have questions, put them in the notes below. I'll help you if I can. I don't know everything, and like I say, I'll make a lot of it up by the seat of my pants as I'm flying along. But sometimes that's just things you experiment with work, some don't. And if anything I've ever done would help you build something out there, I'll be glad to help you if I can. So anyway, like I said, scratch build some buildings, play with your trains, and happy model railroading.